On today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are going to rank the issues. There's a lot going wrong with the Philadelphia Eagles after a two-game win, or I should say losing streak. What are those main problems? Plus stock up, stock down after another loss to the Dallas Cowboys. All that and more in this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Louis DiBiase, joined as always by Gino Camilleri. We are going to continue to recap a disappointing 33-13 loss on Sunday in Jerry World. The Dallas Cowboys jumped the Eagles for first place in the NFC East. The Eagles also jumped for the 1 seed by the San Francisco 49ers. We are on the outside looking in, not from the playoffs, but in the division and 1 seed perspective. The Eagles are now the 5 seed at 10-3 with a matchup coming up against the Seattle Seahawks. Hopefully that is a get-right game. But, Gino, a lot that's gone wrong with this team over the last few weeks. We really dove deep into it on Monday's show, but I think we didn't even really hit on everything because there's so much just not right with this football team right now. If you had to say, because again, it's not black and white, I think it's a complete team effort with the way they have collapsed in these two games. If you had to say, though, like the number one reason, the main thing holding them back right now, what would that be?
Themselves. I think a lot of it is self-inflicted. How many times are you going to fumble the ball in plus territory in the opposing team's red zone? Give a team the ball back when they just go down and score a touchdown and you need a touchdown. Being able to tackle in space, being able to take the ball away. These are all things that you have to do a better job at. And it just comes back to them not doing it to themselves when it comes to penalties, when it comes to fumbling the ball, but playing fundamentally sound across the board. And you could get to the root cause of all of that. I think they're just playing without that swagger, without that confidence, something that we had seen for about a year and a half up until the last 2 weeks. For the first time, they got this gut check and it kind of seems like they're lost. And I said that on yesterday's show that they're trying to find their way. I think they can do it though, Lou. They're 10-3. We have seen, I know I use the quote all the time, flashes get you fired, but we have seen flashes. It's the first year of Brian Johnson. It's the first year of Sean Desai. They're not going anywhere right now. They're probably not going to get fired this offseason either. I think they're going to get another season, both of them, if they're probably not going to get head coaching jobs at this point, I would presume, unless the Eagles do something crazy down the stretch. But right now, you have to take this stretch of Seattle, Giants, Arizona, and the Giants, and you have to play a 60-minute football game, in my opinion.
Which they have done in a long time.
No, but you have to, Lou. That's the only thing that's going to show me that they were able to polish things up here in this closing window, because the litmus test, it's out the window. That was against Dallas. That was against San Fran. You had already seen that in the past. These are the quote-unquote get-right games, and you got to get right fast because you're still competing for the number 1 seed in the East, Lou. You're still competing for potentially getting the number 1. If the Niners slip up, you have a 30% chance as it stands, but you just have to get back to not shooting yourself in the foot and not being the reason you lose this game, or these games, rather.
And you mentioned Sean Desai and Brian Johnson specifically. Like, the Eagles are in their own way right now, but I think people are underrating from a personnel perspective, from like the players. They're underrating the toll the schedule has taken on this team. They look tired. I don't think suddenly after 2 weeks this team doesn't care anymore. Their energy isn't there. They're lazy. Like, they don't care.
Yeah, that's not
their lack of confidence. They're in each other's heads. Like, this anonymous quote from Derek Gunn, I'm not sure how much I believe of that right now. Like, I don't think suddenly this team completely changed their DNA and who they are. I think they have played in a million close games against really good teams. They've had to overcompensate for a lot of injuries. They've been trailing in these football games. Like, that is taxing, and they've been injured. They haven't been completely healthy. So that's a main thing for me from a personnel perspective. But the number one problem for me is coaching, because the players right now, they need help, right? The front four needs help overcompensating for the second and third level of the defense that don't have that much talent right now. Jalen Hurts is not healthy. He needs help from the run game and from the receivers, but everybody needs help right now from the coaching staff, who has made it very hard on these players. They've had to be the reason they win. And of course, it's always going to be the main reason you win is because of the players on the field. They're the ones that have to actually play. And I don't always like blaming scheme. Sometimes I think it's lazy. But this team this year, I think, is only won really because of personnel. There's been a few good Sean Desai games, a couple bright spots from Brian Johnson. But overall, those two have not been reasons enough for why you've won. And I think there's been too many games where they're the reason you have lost. So there's a lot that's going wrong right now, but I think coaching just has not been good enough, and Nick Sirianni should not get a pass either just because he doesn't call plays. I think he kind of slides under the radar more than like a Doug Peterson did because he's not calling plays.
We have to make sure that Nick Sirianni is the last guy that is held accountable. And in that way,
it's his offense,
everything goes through him. It's a funnel system, right? The last guy, the last check and balance, the only way that whatever the game plan is going to make it through that funnel is through your head coach and Nick Sirianni. So it goes down to the defensive game plan. It goes down to the offensive game plan. He was asked that exact question in his press conference today, Lou. What do you think is the problem with the defense? And he alluded to not being able to get off the field on third down. Well, why are you so bad in those areas?
That's a symptom of something else. That's not the problem.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah, causation and correlation. Exactly.
Right.
You have to get to the root cause analysis, and it's just maybe approaching it in a bad way because, like you said, they're healthy now. This was the healthiest we had seen the team the whole season.
Everybody was back. And
everybody was back. No,
yeah.
And you could not have. In the first half, definitely not. In the second half, the defense kind of stepped it up, but it all comes down to Nick, especially on offense, Lou. One of the most damning things about making it easy on this team is that they just don't do it when it comes to an offensive perspective. Exactly. You could look at A.J. Brown's route tree. You can look at any sort of information that you want. If it's San Fran running crossing routes and getting guys open and Dallas doing a lot of the same thing and just beating you in that way and you not doing that, there are numbers to back it up, Lou. From NFL GSIS this morning, I tweeted this out. The Eagles, they currently rank 32nd in the amount of times that they have thrown over the short middle of the field. But they rank 9th in average yards gained on plays over the short middle of the field at 7.84 yards per play and 6th in completion percentage at 75.5. Right? Isn't that frustrating? They're not doing the most efficient thing if you look at it. The most efficient aspect of your passing offense is going at the middle of the field, which one will give your quarterback confidence, two give your pass catchers easy options to where they don't have to separate each and every single freaking play, and that all comes down to who is the guy that is in charge of all of this. Mm-hmm. It's Mr. Sirianni. Nick, you got to figure it out, man. It goes through your coaching staff.
Coaching is number one for me. I would say number two, like if I had to pick a top three, it's coaching. I think on offense too, the players don't get a pass though. There's been a lot of penalties. That's been a sloppy issue since the summer where we heard reports Nick Sirianni was not happy at training camp at times, Gino, with the mistakes going all the way back to August. That's been holding them back. So have turnovers because you mentioned it before the show. They are moving the football well. Against San Francisco, the first half, they were moving the ball. Against Dallas, there were drives. They were moving the football, but they stall out because they can't get out of their own way, and that is one part that's very uncharacteristic of this team in the Sirianni-Hurts era. Normally, they've been very mistake-free and don't get in their own way like the 2018 and 2019 Eagles would, for instance, even though those were good teams eventually. They always would deal with these problems. This core normally doesn't, and that's a main problem too.
Sirianni also mentioned that where he went on this soliloquy today about mentioning every single period in their practice week where they put a focus on taking care of the football. And I even jokingly tweeted out that Bo Wolf took a picture inside of the Eagles NovaCare complex that they have just like a ball security poster of like maintain all points of pressure, squeeze the elbow. And they don't practice what they preach because what you are seeing on the field is you're a sloppy football team. You're sloppy when it comes to penalties. You're sloppy when it comes to turning the ball over. Good teams that hold themselves accountable down to the littlest of details don't do that. You don't do that.
Is it an exhaustion thing? Is it just that they're big game hunting too much? Are they just too overconfident and kind of just maybe they're not disciplined enough? I don't know. That just feels not like this football team. But regardless of what the problem is, the real problem are the turnovers and the penalties. It's coaching. And then for me, number 3 would just be overall, again, just I rewatched a little bit of that game on Sunday. Gino, they are lacking talent in the second and third level. Just even guys that you're not like winning or losing because of, right? I think you look at the safeties. Reed Blankenship's been good this year. Kevin Byard has been an okay addition. Darius Slay has been, I think, unfairly grouped in with the struggles of the secondary when he's
been the only good one.
Yeah, he's grouped in with James Bradbury far too much this year, where he's not the All-Pro of 2021 or 2022, but he's still a pretty good corner. Outside of Slay, though, like, these guys are just, even if some of them you're losing because of, like Bradbury at times, Bradley Roby has not been great, but even the guys that, again, that aren't holding you back like a Leotis McKelvin would back in the day, they're not being difference makers enough. And that's very apparent.
I think it comes down to, if we were to find the root cause of why this is, and one of the reasons was not prioritizing philosophically defending the middle of the field from Howie Roseman's perspective.
They're missing CGJ.
He cannot get off of this either, Lou. And we are people that are big proponents of Howie. We are probably the one podcast that doesn't really say anything bad about him. I'll say it right now. Letting Chauncey walk, letting Marcus walk, letting TJ walk, letting Kaiser walk.
And then just overall the Avonte Maddox injury. That's not something Howie can control. But
and the Zach McPherson injury too.
Those have killed them too. So losing those guys has really hurt this football team. So there's a lot of problems, but as you mentioned earlier in the segment, these are get-right games. They should be favored the rest of the way, and I would not be surprised if they're 13-4 or 14-3 at the end of the year. Everything's still in front of them, including the 1 seed and the NFC East, but they got to get right against the Seattle Seahawks. Coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, we're going to take one final look back at that Cowboys game with a little stock up, stock down. That's coming up right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. This Tuesday edition of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by Game Time. You should not have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time, they take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy them, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Their all-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Game Time is obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Head over to your app store, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that promo code LOCKEDONNFL, which is in all capital letters, LOCKEDONNFL, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Guys, exciting news. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you, 24/7 covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. 33-13 was the final score on Sunday. The Eagles dropped to 10-3 on the year. They dropped to the 5 seed, but again, they've got everything still in front of them. Gino, let's wrap up this game one last time, talk a little bit more about it, and then shoot it into the sun, because honestly, I thought that was harder to watch than the San Francisco game because they just looked lifeless. And when it comes to like the actual issues on the field, when it comes to stock down first, we finished off segment 1 talking about it. It was very apparent how outmatched the Eagles were in the secondary and at linebacker against an MVP like quarterback and Dak Prescott, against some weapons like CeeDee Lamb, but it wasn't even just CeeDee. Jake Ferguson really destroyed them over the middle at tight end. He's been very good for the Cowboys, and he looked great against the Eagles. I think 2 players specifically that really let them down were James Bradbury and Bradley Roby. Like, they need, Darius Slay had a good game, but those two in coverage on Sunday. Bradbury allowed 7 catches on 9 targets for 63 yards and a touchdown. Dak had a 116.2 rating when targeting Bradbury. And then Roby, I mean, we talked about missing Avonte Maddox. They really miss Avonte. Roby, 4 of 6 in coverage, 46 yards, and a touchdown, a 109.7 rating. those two are they're killing them right now.
They have to make multiple draft picks at the cornerback position.
They finally need to invest a top 2 round pick, at least, Gino. Well, at least one.
I will say, as bad as Keely Ringo was, the one pass breakup and like the one tackle that he had was
kind of unfair.
It was
there anyway.
okay. Yeah, but it definitely was. But they need to find a way to not be in this position moving forward to where they don't have a plan here. Because there are a lot of positions where they have a plan. Offensive line, they have plans. Defensive line, they have
plan Bs and plan Cs, right? But it felt like in the slot, at least, Avonte was plan A and B. And that's not okay with his injury history.
Especially after Zach went out, you still had time to go and make a move that early on.
And they did, but it was for a player that's not eligible until 2024.
Yeah, that's the crazy part, too, is that Howie Roseman, once again, could he have done a better job seeing that Avonte Maddox has been injury prone over the entire tenure of his career, that they could have circumvented that or maybe spent that money on not a 230-plus-year-old corners
or
and spent that somewhere else.
Yeah, and Gino, like I kind of understand it. For me at the time, me and you both didn't want to lose both Slay and Bradbury, and we were happy they kept both because it'd be very hard to let 2 players at that position, considering the Eagles' history, leave after the seasons they had last year. My issue more is that Howie didn't really have a backup plan for the slot or for those 2 older corners because, again, he just does not draft this position.
And they didn't have a plan at safety. They let those 2 guys walk, and linebackers kind of hoping that Nakobe Dean would turn into something that now you luckily have found Nicholas Morrow and Zach Cunningham to be a pretty solid combination. There isn't, and why it feels so much like those teams we keep bringing up with like Leotis and those guys that just couldn't run. It just feels like Bradbury got burned a bunch of times this year, and so is Bradley Roby. He got torched multiple times, and that's why I see why Eli Ricks is in there. They just don't want to get beat athletically, and he's the only guy that can keep up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I agree. It's tough. This is not a problem that's going to be fixed in 2023, but Howie Roseman has his work cut out for him this offseason on the second and third level of the defense. But, Gino, unfortunately, the pass rush, they really let them down again on Sunday. And it's not fair at times to put the pressure on them. They have to carry a lot. And it's not just for the second and third level of the defense, but Sean Desai does not often bring up, any sort of pressure packages with blitzes, not a lot of disguised coverage, very vanilla at times. So they're dealing with a lot. But they only pressured Dak Prescott in the first half when it was a game. They only got to Dak 5 times on 25 dropbacks. And they were heading into this game, funny enough, with the 4th worst pressure rate, which is surprising to me. Like they, at least in the last 2 games, have not finished sacks, and they have not gotten to the quarterback enough.
And ultimately has cost them on situational downs. The Eagles rank terribly in arguably the most important aspects of defense. They're last on third down, 30th in red zone D, and 27th in goal-to-go situations. And why is that? It's a combination of not having coverage and guys in the back end that can hold up for 2.5 to 3 seconds and not getting to the quarterback in that 2.5 second time frame, where Dallas really does do a good job circumventing what the Eagles do really well and getting that ball out, and not having a game plan against a division opponent, your best division opponent, the only one that really is challenging you right now, drives me insane. Because how many times do I say you have to draft and build to beat your division, Lou? And Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb torch you every single freaking time. Yeah. It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense at all that they can't find a way to stop Dak in the slightest. It has been a recurring theme for 8 years.
His entire career. Yeah, he's always had success against them.
Forever. And they aren't finding a way to fix it, and they better do something fast, because if you have to go down there again, I'll keep saying you're going to get boat raced if it continues to be the way you are and your defense is the way that it is. But trying to be positive, we have seen the Kansas City game plan. We have seen the Miami game plan. You have to find a way to mesh that coverage and that
get back
front.
To that.
Because then it turns into the pointing fingers. Is it the front? Is it the coverage? The same discussion we've had for 5 out of the 6 years here on Locked On Eagles. And we're basically right back where we began the show, Lou. Trying to figure out why the secondary can't cover and why the front can't hit home.
Well, it was a fun year last year to have an elite secondary. So at least we had the 1 year on the show. Gino, before we take a break, any positives? I would say like Fletcher Cox was great in that game.
I think Eli Ricks is continuing
Ricks
to
had a
step
good
up
game.
for just being an undrafted free agent, stepping up in some big assignments.
Yeah.
It's tough to really give any positives.
I thought Slay was
in
good.
this game. Yeah, Slay continues to be good, and why that guy wasted his time going to Lincoln Financial Field and putting no play Slay on a trash can.
Well,
is
again,
such
he
a waste of
unfairly, I
time.
think, gets grouped in with Bradbury because they both
He had
re-signed
like
here
4
this
pass
offseason.
breakups in this game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
He was all around the football.
No, I thought Slay was good.
In whatever matchup, too. It was against
Yeah.
Gallup. It was against Cooks. It was against CD. And if I had to give a positive, we have to get back to special teams, man. Michael Clay is the only guy that was prepared. And
yeah, ballsy with the fake punt, but they needed it unbelievably so.
And you're going against a really good coordinator on the other side in Bones Fossil. Like, he won his matchup. He was the only guy that wasn't out-coached, I would have to say. And Covey puts them in good positions. And Britton Mann is top 10 in punts since he came into Philadelphia. And Jake Elliott continues to be the only source of any offense that you can get the last couple weeks. So, yeah, let's take special teams as it is because it's the only saving grace they have.
Right. Let's hope stock up, stock down's a little more fun next week. Hopefully after a Seahawks loss to the Birds. We'll see what happens. We'll continue to get into that game over the following week on Locked On Eagles. We've got one more segment there here on Tuesday as we recap this Eagles-Cowboys game. Talking a little quarterback, Jalen Hurts. We did not put him in this list of stock up, stock down. What's your concern level with Jalen after the last 2 games? We'll get into all that and more on this Tuesday edition of Locked On Eagles.
Today's edition of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. It is the easiest way to quite literally go on your phone and in a couple taps have food delivered directly to your door. I can think back to a time where we would have discussions like, why can't McDonald's be delivered right to our house? And it quite literally can. And so can a cheesesteak from De Rossi's or pizza from Santucci's, hoagies from Wawa, whatever your favorite restaurant is, you could get it sent right to your door. And first-time customers, thanks to us here at Locked On, you are going to get a 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. All you have to do, download the app, create an account, and put in the promo code LOCKED23. That's LOCKED23 to enjoy your whatever your favorite food is. Honestly, I order every single thing. I don't discriminate against food. If it's on that app, I'm going to get it sent to my house. And that's over at DoorDash, and you can get in on it as well. Go to DoorDash on the app, put in the promo code LOCK23, and you'll get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more.
All right, Eagles fans, we're wrapping up this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, talking about the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who, Gino, I wouldn't say over the last 2 games it's been like stock down where he's been terrible. He's, completely unraveling, like regressing as if it's 2020 Carson Wentz. Like, that's not the case at all. But he has not been special, and they've needed him to be special like he was the previous games against these really good football teams. He's kind of just been a guy lately, and it did look like he lost some confidence on Sunday. He definitely looks beat up and injured. Again, I don't know if it's an exhaustion thing or what it is, but, Jalen definitely has not, safely to say, he has not looked the same over the last 2 games.
I think it's fair, and I don't think it's a criticism more than it is us pointing out what we have observed.
It's not a concern. It's just a fact that he just has not been good enough the last few games. I don't think it's a trend or a sign of things to come, but the fact of the matter is, he's not been the guy, the MVP candidate he was 3 weeks ago.
There were still times when he showed up when he's like rolling to his left and he delivers a dart to Devontae Smith to pick up a first down, but he's definitely not himself. We know that. And we continue to talk about the root cause. Why is that? I think one thing they have to completely eliminate, Lou, and I know they got 5 to 6 yards on both of the plays. Take the quarterback run game out of the equation. You have to protect
he's
him.
Healthy.
Because what is the upside? The upside is you gain 5 or 6 yards. The downside is he could potentially fumble the ball. The downside is he could potentially get hit again. And the downside is he is injured and you could do more damage than you are doing good. So is the good of what he did in 2022 outweighing the potential injury? Yeah, he was elite running the football in 2022. We know that. But right now, it is broken. And I think you just kind of have to put him back into a box. Be like, and in the pocket, Lou, they've been effective. The run game just hasn't been working. Whether it's him, whether it's DeAndre, whether it's just not working. And they're trying to force it. And him sitting in the pocket realistically is the only way you're going to compete in football games at this current point in time. And it's not like DeAndre has to have any load management. He's gotten less than 10 carries in the first 2 halves combined over the last
I don't think he's had a 20.
games.
When was the last time, Gino, he had 20 plus touches in a game? It's been since like October.
If that.
Yeah, so
give these guys the ball. You got to take the wear and tear off of Jalen. You got to protect him.
That's the point. I think, again, he's been stepping up to the plate this year. They've needed him to carry them for many games, and he has done that, I would say, 90% of the time this season. But the offense, especially these last 2 games against great teams when he was not able to be Superman, the rest of the team was not able to pick him up the way he's been picking them up. Like the run game, as you mentioned, has not been good enough. We've already talked to death about Brian Johnson not making it easy on Jalen. They're forcing him to run the football too, and he's not at 100% with that leg. Outside of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, nobody has stepped up. I mean, Gino, outside of the big 3, Smith, Brown, and Goddard, Hurts didn't target a single other player on Sunday in Dallas. Like, nobody is helping him out, and that's not to excuse his own issues. Like, yes, he is the one that's hurt right now. He's the one that continues to fumble the football. I think he's forcing the issue at times, especially on first and second down. He's going for the kill shot too much. He's hanging on to the ball. But I think a lot of that is enhanced from the rest of his support system, where he feels like he needs to do all that stuff and be Superman, because they're not helping him. I mean, Dan Orlovsky even pointed out, like, Jalen he's trying to kill everybody on first and second down way too much. He has the second lowest QBR on first downs right now in the league.
And that's a scary statement to say, because I was getting flashbacks to what we talked about with Carson, where it's like, dude, just take what's there.
I instantly thought of that with Wentz, because Wentz used to think he had to save everybody, and a lot of times he had to. So hopefully you don't want a quarterback to have this kind of patterns and behavior consistently like confirmed right in his head, because that's when bad habits start to build.
And unlike Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts actually does account for a vast amount of the offense.
And he's not the tunnel vision mental player either.
Right. I think he definitely is going to have to get it back on track. I think the argument against going outside of the big 3 in the pass game is crazy. One of these Cowboy fans that follows us for some reason tried to say, "Oh, Jack Stoll was open 2 weeks ago a lot." Do you want your pass game to go through Jack Stoll?
And Gino, that's not my like. I'm not saying that them not targeting anybody else is a problem, because that was the same case in 2022 when they were just fine.
All-stars the ball.
But the point is though that nobody else is really helping him at all right now, outside of because Goddard wasn't playing over the last 4 games before Dallas. And it was really only Smith and Brown, because even, as we mentioned, we needed the run game and the offensive line to help him in this offense out more, and they haven't.
And I will say there were a couple times in this football game where Jalen delivered some pretty nice balls that were just dropped.
And as you mentioned,
fundamental football, man.
The passing game does work when he throws over the middle. They're just not doing it enough.
I think it's everybody has to be incriminated in this situation, in my opinion. And everybody has to take their bit of accountability. It has to be Jalen understanding to take what's there, protect his body. It's these playmakers knowing that if they're going to say anything about getting the football at all, and they don't make plays when the ball is thrown to them, it is a problem. And your coaching staff also has to give these guys easy pitch and catch opportunities as well. That's why I'm so jealous of these great offensive teams. And I keep saying it, and I hate Nick Sirianni. You don't motion, just the motion. Nick, yes, sometimes you do just motion. It's
not just emotion. It's because it works. Because that's where the NFL is going. And it sets up other
things in the game. You can use the motion over and over again to get somebody's eyes in a direction that later on you can go away from.
Like, does he think motion doesn't work? Is that why?
This guy continues to brag about how Jay Sirianni in our neck of the woods in Jamestown, his brother, won a state championship running the wing tee. What is the basis of a wing tee offense? It's motion, motion, motion.
And we're not saying you have to be the Miami Dolphins and be number 1 or top 5 in motion, but they've been dead. They're dead last. They don't do it at all.
And then you can't sit there and say, "Oh, why aren't guys separating? Why are we throwing all of these low percentage number throws outside of the boundary and outside of the number?" Because that's how our offense is predicated, is not setting it up to make it easy for our offense. There's no motion to give guys free releases to the point where they're just out in the open on a quick slant and they could just get the ball. Everybody has to win 100% of the time. And frankly, that's not going to work in the National Football League. It is the balance.
Yeah.
It is the balance, Lou. Whatever it is, if it's play calling, if it's execution, they have to get back to that middle and find out who they are. Because if not, you know what's ahead of you. You know the opportunity that's ahead of you. And if you lose one of these 4 games in any manner that's questionable, that's going to tell us a lot about this football team. But I hope, I know it's not a way to go forward, but you just have to hope that this team turns it around because we're not playing the game. There's 53 guys, 46 of them are on the field on game day. You got to hope they can go and do it.
Yeah, and we've seen them do it this year. I'm still confident that they can go on a run here. Again, you're not going to be able to beat the Cowboys or 49ers for the rest of the regular season. That we're going to have to find out in the playoffs. But when it comes to the 1 seed, the NFC East, that's still in front of you this week. It starts with the Seattle Seahawks. Gino and I will dive into that matchup on tomorrow's edition of the show. Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off on this Tuesday edition of the show. As always, thank you so much for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.